Imagine holding a simple 1-cent coin in your hand, something most people ignore, something many people wouldn't even bother to pick up from the ground. Now imagine that same tiny coin being worth hundreds, even thousands of dollars. Sounds unbelievable, right? But today we're talking about a coin that could turn pocket change into real money, the 1925 Lincoln Wheat Penny. This coin is more than just a piece of copper. It's a part of history. It carries a story from almost 100 years ago, a time when the world looked completely different. And believe it or not, some of these pennies are still out there, waiting to be discovered. Let's go back in time to understand where it all started. The Lincoln Wheat Penny was first introduced in 1909 to celebrate the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. It was a historic moment because this was the first time a real person appeared on a U.S. coin instead of symbolic figures like Lady Liberty. The coin was designed by Victor David Brenner. On the front, you see the profile of Abraham Lincoln, strong and dignified. On the back, you'll notice 2 wheat stalks framing the words 1 cent. That's why collectors call it the wheat penny. Now fast forward to 1925. Millions of these pennies were minted across 3 locations: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Each one has its own identity. If your coin has no mint mark, it was made in Philadelphia. If it has a small D, it came from Denver. And if you see an S, it was minted in San Francisco. At first glance, they may all look the same. But here's where things get interesting. The value of your 1925 penny depends on tiny details most people overlook. Condition is everything. A worn-out coin that has been in circulation for decades might only be worth a few cents. In fact, many common 1925 pennies in poor condition are worth less than $1. But the moment you find one in better condition, the value starts climbing. A 1925 penny in decent shape can be worth a few dollars. In higher grades, it can reach $10 or more. And if you're lucky enough to find one in mint condition, meaning it looks almost brand new, the price can jump dramatically. Some high-grade examples have sold for hundreds or even thousands of dollars depending on rarity and preservation. Yes, you heard that right. A 1-cent coin turning into thousands. But wait, it gets even more exciting. Not all 1925 pennies are equal. Coins minted in Denver and San Francisco are generally more valuable than those from Philadelphia. Why? Because fewer were produced, making them rarer. So if you ever find a 1925 penny with a small D or S under the date, don't ignore it. That tiny letter could mean extra money in your pocket. Now let's talk about something that can make a coin truly special: errors. During the minting process, mistakes sometimes happen. These errors can turn an ordinary coin into a collector's dream. We're talking about things like double strikes, off-center designs, or unusual markings. These rare mistakes are highly sought after, and collectors are willing to pay big money for them. So if your 1925 penny looks a little different, don't assume it's damaged. It might actually be valuable. Another important factor is color. Yes, even the color of your coin matters. Collectors classify pennies into 3 categories: red, red-brown, and brown. Freshly minted coins have a bright red color, and these are the most valuable. Over time, the copper reacts with air and darkens into brown, which lowers the value. So if you find a 1925 penny that still has its original red shine, you might be holding something special. Now here's something most people don't realize. Even though millions of these coins were made, finding one in excellent condition today is very rare. That's because most of them were used in everyday transactions for years, slowly wearing down over time. Think about it, this coin could have passed through thousands of hands, used to buy food, pay for goods, or even survive through the Great Depression. Every scratch and mark tells a story. That's what makes coin collecting so fascinating. You're not just collecting money, you're collecting history. But let's answer the big question. Is the 1925 Lincoln Wheat Penny really worth a lot of money? The honest answer is, it depends. Most of these coins are not extremely valuable. Many are worth just a few cents to a few dollars. But the rare ones, the ones in perfect condition or with unique features, those are the ones collectors fight over. And that's what makes this so exciting. Because you never know what you might find. Imagine checking your old coins, your piggy bank, or even loose change around your house, and discovering a hidden treasure. It happens more often than you think. People have found valuable coins in the most unexpected places. Old jars, inherited collections, even pocket change. And the 1925 wheat penny is one of those coins you should always look out for. So how can you tell if your coin is valuable? Start by checking the date. Make sure it says 1925. Then look for the mint mark under the date. Next, examine the condition. Is Lincoln's face clear? Are the wheat stalks detailed? Or is the coin worn down? And finally, look for anything unusual, errors, strange marks, or anything that looks different from a normal coin. If your coin checks these boxes, you might have something worth serious money. Now here's a tip. Never clean your coin. It might seem like a good idea to make it look shiny, but cleaning actually reduces its value. Collectors prefer coins in their original condition, even if they look old. So leave it as it is. If you think your coin might be valuable, consider getting it checked by a professional or comparing it with trusted price guides. Because sometimes, a small detail can make a huge difference. And that's the beauty of coin collecting. It turns ordinary objects into extraordinary discoveries. It teaches patience, attention to detail, and the thrill of the hunt. And who knows, the next time you see a penny on the ground, you might not ignore it anymore. Because that tiny coin could be worth a fortune. So start checking your coins today. You never know what treasure is hiding in plain sight. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because we're uncovering more hidden treasures just like this. Your next big discovery could be just one coin away. The 1941 Lincoln Wheat Penny might look like just another old coin. Something small, ordinary, maybe even forgotten in a jar or lying in your pocket change. But what if I told you this tiny 1-cent coin could actually be worth far more than its face value? And in some rare cases, even hundreds of dollars. Before you spend that old penny, you need to hear this. Let's go back in time. The year is 1941. The world is on the edge of chaos. World War II is about to change everything. And in the United States, millions and millions of pennies are being produced. These coins were not just money. They were part of everyday life during one of the most important periods in history. The 1941 Lincoln Wheat Penny is part of a famous series that started in 1909, created to honor Abraham Lincoln. It was the first U.S. coin to feature a real person. Designed by Victor David Brenner, the front shows Lincoln's profile, while the back displays 2 wheat stalks, giving it the name Wheat Penny. That simple design became one of the most iconic in American history. Now here's where things get interesting. In 1941, over 1.1 billion pennies were produced across 3 different mints. Philadelphia made the most, followed by Denver and San Francisco. Because of these huge numbers, many people believe this coin is common and not worth much. But that's not the full story. Yes, most 1941 pennies you find today are only worth a few cents. Maybe 5 to 20 cents depending on condition. But hidden among these ordinary coins are rare versions that collectors are willing to pay serious money for. And the difference between a common penny and a valuable one can come down to just a few small details. First, you need to check the mint mark. Look under the year 1941 on the coin. If there is no letter, it was made in Philadelphia. If you see a small D, it came from Denver. And if there's an S, it was minted in San Francisco. Each one has a slightly different value, especially in higher condition. Now let's talk about condition, because this is where the real money starts. Coins are graded based on how much detail they still have. If your penny looks worn out, with faded lines and scratches, it's probably only worth a few cents. But if your coin looks almost brand new, with sharp details and shiny surfaces, that's called uncirculated condition. And those coins can be worth several dollars, even up to $5 or $10 or more depending on quality. But wait, this is just the beginning. Because the real treasures are something collectors call error coins. These are coins that were made incorrectly at the mint. And believe it or not, mistakes can make a coin extremely valuable. One of the most famous types is the double die error. This happens when the design is accidentally stamped twice, slightly off alignment. If you look closely, you might see doubling in the letters, especially in God We Trust or the date itself. Another rare error is an off-center strike, where the design is not properly aligned on the coin. And then there are lamination errors, where the metal itself has flaws. These kinds of errors can turn a simple penny into something worth $50, $100, or even more depending on how rare and clear the error is. Now imagine this. You're going through old coins at home, maybe something your grandparents saved, or a jar you've had for years, and suddenly, you find a 1941 penny that looks different. Shinier, sharper, maybe even with a strange doubling effect. That moment could be worth real money. But here's something most people don't realize. Even though the 1941 penny is not considered rare overall, collectors still love it. Why? Because it represents a powerful moment in history, right before the United States entered World War II. And coins from this era carry a story. Every scratch, every detail, every mark tells you where that coin has been over the last 80 years. Think about it. This coin could have been used during wartime, passed from one hand to another, used to buy food, supplies, maybe even carried by someone during one of the most intense periods in human history. That alone gives it value beyond just money. Now here's a shocking fact. The value of a coin doesn't just depend on age. It depends on rarity, condition, demand, and uniqueness. That's why some coins that look old are still worth almost nothing, while others that look similar can sell for hundreds or even thousands. And that's exactly why you should never ignore old coins, because you never know what you might have. Some collectors spend years searching for high-quality 1941 wheat pennies, especially those graded at MS65 or higher, which means near-perfect condition. These coins are carefully preserved, often kept in protective cases, and sold through auctions or grading companies. And when collectors compete, prices can go even higher. Now let's clear up a myth. You might have seen online listings claiming a 1941 penny is worth thousands of dollars. In most cases, that's not true. Many sellers try to attract attention with unrealistic prices. But real value comes from verified sales, condition, and expert grading. So if you think you have a valuable coin, the best thing you can do is get it checked by a professional grading service. That's how serious collectors determine the true worth. Now here's what you should do right now. Go check your coins. Look for a 1941 Lincoln Wheat Penny. Check the mint mark. Look closely at the details. Use a magnifying glass if you have one. Search for any unusual features, doubling off-center designs, or anything that looks different. Because that one small coin could surprise you. And even if it's not worth a fortune, it's still a piece of history, over 80 years old. That's something special. And who knows, the next time you find an old penny, it might not just be 1 cent. It might be a hidden treasure waiting to be discovered. So before you spend that coin, take a second look. Because in the world of coin collecting, even the smallest things can be worth the most. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. And tell me in the comments, have you ever found a rare coin? Or are you going to check your coins right now? Because your next discovery could be sitting in your pocket.
Have you ever imagined that a simple 1-cent coin in your pocket could be worth thousands, or even hundreds of thousands of dollars? It sounds unbelievable, but for one specific coin, it's absolutely real. Today, we're talking about the 1944 Lincoln Wheat Penny, a coin that looks ordinary, but hides one of the most shocking secrets in coin history. And by the end of this video, you might want to check every single penny you own, because one tiny detail could change everything. Let's go back to the year 1944. The world was in the middle of World War II. Metal was extremely valuable, especially copper. In 1943, the United States made a big decision. They stopped using copper for pennies, and instead started making them out of steel to save resources for the war. But people didn't like those steel coins. They rusted, looked strange, and were often confused with dimes. So in 1944, the government switched back to copper pennies. But here's where things get interesting. The copper used in 1944 wasn't normal. It actually came from recycled war materials, including used shell casings. Yes, the same metal used in bullets was melted down and turned into pennies. That means every 1944 penny carries a piece of history from World War II. Now at first glance, the 1944 wheat penny looks simple. On the front, you'll see Abraham Lincoln. On the back, 2 wheat stalks, which is why it's called a wheat penny. Millions, actually billions, of these coins were made. So most of them today are not very rare. In fact, a normal 1944 penny might only be worth a few cents. But here's the twist. Not all 1944 pennies are the same. Some of them are worth a fortune. And it all comes down to one tiny mistake. You see, when the mint switched back to copper in 1944, a few leftover steel blanks from 1943 were accidentally used. That means a small number of 1944 pennies were made out of steel, even though they were never supposed to exist. This is what collectors call a mint error, and this specific error is one of the rarest in U.S. coin history. Experts believe fewer than 40 of these steel pennies exist today. Let that sink in. Out of billions of coins, only a few dozen are this rare. And because of that, their value is insane. Even a worn 1944 steel penny can sell for over $35,000. In better condition, prices can jump to $100,000, $200,000, and in some cases, even close to $1 million. Yes, a single penny. Now imagine this. What if one of these rare coins is sitting in an old jar, a drawer, or even your wallet? That's why collectors are always searching. Because stories like this have happened before. People have found rare coins in everyday change and turned them into life-changing money. But how can you tell if you have one? It's actually very simple. First, look at the color. A normal 1944 penny is brown or copper-colored, but the rare steel version looks silver or gray. Second, try the magnet test. A steel penny will stick to a magnet. Copper penny will not. This one small test could reveal a hidden treasure. But be careful. There are fake coins out there. Some people coat copper pennies to make them look like steel. That's why professionals always check the weight and authenticity before confirming value. Now let's talk about the regular 1944 pennies. Even though most of them aren't extremely valuable, they can still be worth more than 1 cent. A circulated 1944 penny might sell for a few cents to a few dollars. But if it's in perfect condition, collectors may pay much more. Coins with a bright red color, known as mint state red, are especially valuable. Some high-quality examples can reach hundreds of dollars. And then there are mint marks. If your coin has no mint mark, it was made in Philadelphia. If it has a D, it came from Denver. If it has an S, it was made in San Francisco. Each version has slightly different values depending on rarity and condition. There are also other errors to look for, like doubled letters, off-center designs, or unusual markings. These small details can increase a coin's value significantly, but nothing compares to the legendary 1944 steel penny. That coin is considered the holy grail for collectors. A mistake that should never have happened, but did. And because of that, it became one of the most valuable pennies ever created. Think about it. A tiny error in a factory created a coin worth more than a luxury car, more than a house in some places, all from something most people ignore every day. That's what makes coin collecting so exciting. You never know what you might find. And sometimes, the smallest things hold the biggest value. So next time you get change, don't just spend it. Look at it. Check the date. Check the color. Because hidden among ordinary coins could be something extraordinary. And who knows, that one penny you almost ignored might be worth a fortune. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment below. And tell me, have you ever found a rare coin? Or are you going to check your pennies right now? Because your next discovery could change everything. Imagine finding a simple 1-cent coin in your pocket and discovering it could be worth hundreds, even thousands of dollars. Sounds impossible, right? But what if I told you that a small, ordinary-looking coin from 1950, the Lincoln Wheat Penny, could secretly be a hidden treasure? Today, we're diving deep into the history, value, and shocking truth behind the 1951-cent coin, and why collectors around the world are searching for it right now. Let's start with the story behind this coin. The Lincoln Wheat Penny was first introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th birthday of Abraham Lincoln. It became one of the most iconic coins in American history. On the front, you see Lincoln's profile. On the back, 2 wheat stalks frame the words 1 cent, symbolizing prosperity and growth. By 1950, the world was changing. World War II had ended just a few years earlier, and the United States was entering a new era of economic growth. Coins like the 1950 wheat penny were part of everyday life. People used them for buying candy, newspapers, and small items. But here's the interesting part. Even though millions of these coins were made, not all of them are equal. In fact, the value of a 1950 wheat penny depends on 3 main things: condition, mint mark, and rare errors. Let's break that down. First, condition. Most 1950 pennies you find today are worn out. They've been used, scratched, and passed from hand to hand for decades. These are called circulated coins, and they usually have a low value. A typical circulated 1950 penny might be worth only a few cents, sometimes around 10 to 20 cents depending on its condition. But here's where things get exciting. If you find a 1950 wheat penny in near perfect condition, what collectors call uncirculated, the value can jump dramatically. Some high-grade coins have sold for hundreds of dollars, and in rare cases, even over $1,000. Now let's talk about mint marks. If you look closely under the date on the coin, you might see a small letter. No letter means it was made in Philadelphia. A D means Denver, and an S means San Francisco. Each mint produced different amounts of coins in 1950. Philadelphia made over 270 million coins, Denver made over 330 million, and San Francisco made around 118 million. Because of this, some versions are slightly more collectible than others, especially in better condition. But the real money is in the rare varieties. Yes, this is where things get crazy. Some 1950 wheat pennies have minting errors. These are mistakes made during the production process, and collectors love errors. For example, a coin with a repunched mint mark, where the letter appears doubled, can be worth significantly more. Other errors include off-center strikes, double dies, or unusual coloring. These rare mistakes can turn a simple penny into a collector's dream. And sometimes, these coins can be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars depending on how rare and well-preserved they are. Now you might be wondering, if so many were made, why are some worth so much money today? The answer is simple: survival and quality. Even though millions were produced, very few remain in perfect condition. Over time, most coins were damaged, lost, or melted down. Collectors are always searching for the best examples. Coins with sharp details, bright color, and no scratches. These are called red pennies, and they are the most valuable. In fact, a high-grade 1950 wheat penny with original red color can sell for hundreds of dollars or more. And if it also has a rare error, that's when prices can explode. But here's something even more interesting. Back in 1950, people didn't think these coins would ever be valuable. They were just everyday money. But today, collectors are paying serious money to get them back. That's the power of time. Something ordinary can become extraordinary just by surviving. Now let's talk about something most people don't know. Some 1950 wheat pennies could be worth over $100, even $1,000 or more depending on condition and rarity. And yet, many people still have them sitting in jars, drawers, or old collections, completely unaware of their value. Imagine throwing away a coin worth hundreds of dollars just because it looks old. That's why checking your coins is so important. So how can you tell if your 1950 penny is valuable? Here are a few simple things to look for. First, check the date. Make sure it says 1950. Second, look for the mint mark under the date. Third, examine the condition. Are the details sharp? Is Lincoln's face clear? Are the wheat lines visible on the back? Fourth, look for anything unusual. Double letters, strange marks, or off-center designs. If your coin looks different, it might be rare. And if you think you've found something valuable, don't clean it. Cleaning a coin can actually reduce its value. Instead, keep it safe and consider getting it checked by a professional. Because you never know. That tiny coin could be worth far more than you think. Now let's step back for a moment. The 1950 wheat penny is more than just a coin. It's a piece of history. It represents a time when the world was rebuilding, when people used cash every day, and when even a single cent had real value. Today, we live in a digital world. Payments are made with phones, cards, and apps. But coins like this remind us of the past. They connect us to history in a way nothing else can. And that's why collectors love them. Not just for the money, but for the story. So next time you see an old penny, don't ignore it. Take a closer look. Because hidden in your pocket, or sitting in an old jar at home, could be a small piece of history, worth a fortune. And who knows? The next valuable coin discovery might be yours. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and check your coins right now. Because your next penny could change everything. Imagine holding a small, ordinary-looking penny. A coin most people ignore, toss into jars, or even leave behind. But what if that tiny piece of copper in your hand could be worth hundreds, or even thousands of dollars? Today, we're diving deep into the fascinating story of the 1951 Lincoln Wheat Penny, a coin with history, mystery, and surprising value hidden inside. The 1951 Wheat Penny is part of one of the most iconic coin series in American history. First introduced in 1909 to honor Abraham Lincoln, this design became the first U.S. coin to feature a real person. On the front, you see Lincoln's portrait, strong and timeless. On the back, 2 wheat stalks frame the words 1 cent, giving the coin its famous nickname, the Wheat Penny. By 1951, this coin was already a part of everyday life in America. It passed through millions of hands, used in shops, saved in piggy banks, and even collected by early coin enthusiasts who believed these pennies would one day be valuable. And they were right. In 1951, over 1 billion wheat pennies were produced across 3 different mints, Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. That might sound like a huge number, and it is. But here's where things get interesting. Not all 1951 pennies are equal. Some are common and worth just a few cents. But others, depending on condition, mint mark, and rare errors, can be worth a lot more. Let's break it down. First, mint marks. If your 1951 penny has no mint mark, It was made in Philadelphia. These are the most common. If it has a small d, it came from Denver. And if you see an S, it was minted in San Francisco, and these tend to be slightly more valuable because fewer were made. Now here's the part most people miss. Condition is everything. A worn, circulated 1951 penny that has been used for decades might only be worth a few cents, typically between about 5 cents to 20 cents. That's why many people think these coins are worthless. But a coin in near-perfect condition, one that looks almost brand new, can be worth much more. Collectors call this mint state. In mint state condition, a 1951 penny can jump to several dollars, then hundreds, and in rare cases even over $1,000 depending on its grade. Yes, a single penny worth more than $1,000. But wait, it gets even more exciting, because sometimes mistakes happen during the minting process. And these mistakes can turn an ordinary coin into a collector's dream. We're talking about error coins. For example, if your 1951 penny has doubling in the letters or numbers, meaning the text looks slightly duplicated, that could be a double die error. If parts of the design are missing or distorted, that could be a strike error. These errors are rare, and collectors love rare. Even small errors can push a coin's value from a few cents to hundreds of dollars. In some extreme cases, rare error coins from similar wheat penny years have sold for tens of thousands. That's why checking your coins carefully is so important. Now let's talk about something many people overlook: the metal itself. The 1951 wheat penny is made of 95% copper. That gives it a warm, rich color that collectors really appreciate. It's also one of the reasons older pennies feel heavier and more valuable than modern ones. But here's something even more interesting. Collectors don't just look at age. They look at details. They check the shine, known as luster. They look at the color, whether it's bright red, brown, or somewhere in between. They examine tiny scratches, marks, and wear. Even the smallest detail can change a coin's value dramatically. Two coins from the same year, same mint, same design. One could be worth 10 cents. The other could be worth $1,000. That's the power of condition. Now imagine this. You find a 1951 penny in an old jar, dusty, forgotten, sitting there for years. At first glance, it looks like nothing special. But then you clean it carefully, examine it under light, and notice something unusual. Sharp details, strong lettering, maybe even a slight error. And suddenly, that ordinary penny becomes something extraordinary. This is why coin collecting is so exciting. Because treasure doesn't always look like treasure. Sometimes, it looks like a simple coin. And here's another reason why the 1951 wheat penny is so popular today. It represents a different time. A time when money was made differently. When coins were crafted with more copper, more weight, and more character. Every scratch tells a story. Every mark represents a journey through history. Maybe your coin bought a cup of coffee in the 1950s, or passed through a store during a historic moment, or sat in someone's pocket for decades before reaching you. That's what makes these coins more than just money. They're pieces of history, and history has value. So how do you know if your 1951 penny is valuable? Here's what you should do. First, check the date and mint mark. Second, look closely at the condition. Are the details sharp? Is Lincoln's face clear? Are the wheat lines visible? Third, search for errors. Look at the numbers, letters, and edges carefully. And finally, compare your coin to known values or get it professionally graded. Because sometimes, what you think is just a penny could actually be a hidden treasure. And here's the truth most people don't realize. Millions of these coins are still out there. In jars, in drawers, in old collections, even in your pocket change. People spend them every day, not knowing what they have. So next time you see a penny, don't ignore it. Take a closer look, because that tiny coin could be worth far more than 1 cent. And who knows, the next time you check your change, you might just discover a piece of history worth a fortune. If you enjoyed this video and want to learn about more rare coins hiding in everyday life, make sure to subscribe, like this video, and comment below if you've ever found a valuable coin. And remember, sometimes the smallest things hold the biggest value. Have you ever wondered if a simple 1 cent coin sitting in your pocket could actually be worth real money? Maybe even hundreds or thousands of dollars. Today, we're diving deep into one of the most interesting coins in American history, the 1952 Lincoln Wheat Penny. At first glance, it looks like just another old coin. But once you understand its history, hidden features, and value, you might never look at your spare change the same way again. The 1952 Lincoln Wheat Penny is part of a famous series of coins that were minted in the United States from 1909 to 1958. This design was created to honor President Abraham Lincoln, making it the first U.S. coin to ever feature a real person. Before that, coins usually showed symbolic figures like Lady Liberty. This change made the Lincoln penny not just money, but a historical symbol. On the front of the coin, you'll see the profile of Abraham Lincoln, designed by Victor David Brenner. On the back, there are 2 wheat stalks framing the words 1 cent and United States of America. These wheat stalks represent prosperity and agriculture, which were extremely important to America at the time. Now here's where things start to get interesting. The 1952 wheat penny was produced in massive numbers. In fact, over 1 billion of these coins were minted across 3 different locations: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. That means millions of people still have them today, often without even realizing it. But just because a coin is common doesn't mean it's worthless. In fact, some 1952 pennies can be worth far more than 1 cent depending on a few key factors. And that's exactly what we're going to uncover. First, let's talk about mint marks. If you look under the date on your coin, you might see a small letter. If there's no letter, it was made in Philadelphia. If there's a D, it came from Denver. And if you see an S, it was minted in San Francisco. Among these, the San Francisco version is generally considered slightly more valuable because fewer were produced compared to Denver. Now let's get into the real question everyone asks. How much is a 1952 wheat penny actually worth? For most coins that have been used in everyday circulation, the value is usually just a few cents. Many worn coins sell for around 5 to 20 cents. But don't lose hope just yet, because the value can increase dramatically depending on the condition of the coin. Condition is everything in coin collecting. A coin that looks shiny, clean, and almost brand new is called uncirculated. These coins were never used in everyday transactions and have been preserved for decades. Uncirculated 1952 pennies can be worth anywhere from $1 to $15 or more. But here's where things get really exciting. If your coin is in extremely high-grade condition, meaning it has almost no flaws and retains its original red copper color, the value can skyrocket. Some top-quality 1952 pennies have sold for hundreds or even thousands of dollars at auctions. So what makes these coins so valuable? Comes down to rarity and perfection. Even though billions were made, very few have survived in perfect condition. Most coins were used, scratched, or damaged over time. Finding one in pristine condition today is like discovering a hidden treasure. Now let's talk about something that can make your coin even more valuable: errors. Minting errors are mistakes that happen during the production of coins. These errors can turn an ordinary coin into something extremely rare and desirable. One of the most popular errors is called a double die. This happens when the design is stamped twice slightly off-center, creating a doubling effect on the letters or numbers. Another valuable error is the off-center strike. This is when the coin design is not properly aligned, making part of the coin appear missing. Depending on how dramatic the error is, these coins can be worth anywhere from $10 to over $100. There is also something known as the BIE error. This is a small crack in the die that creates what looks like an extra letter between the B and E in the word liberty. While it might look like a tiny flaw, collectors actually love these kinds of imperfections. And then there are repunched mint marks where the mint mark letter was stamped more than once. This creates a shadow or doubling effect that can significantly increase the coin's value. So if you have a 1952 penny, don't just look at it quickly and assume it's worthless. Take a closer look. Use a magnifying glass if you can. Check for unusual details, doubling, or anything that looks different. Now let's talk about color, because this is something many beginners don't know. Copper coins change color over time. When a penny is brand new, it has a bright red color. As it ages, it turns into a brown shade. Collectors classify these coins as red, red-brown, or brown. Red coins are the most valuable because they look closest to how they appeared when they were first minted. A bright red 1952 penny in perfect condition can be worth significantly more than a brown one, even if they are the same coin. Another important tip is grading. Professional grading services like PCGS or NGC evaluate coins based on their condition and assign them a grade. Coins with higher grades are more valuable because they are closer to perfection. If you think you have a high-quality 1952 penny, getting it professionally graded could increase its value even more. Many collectors are willing to pay a premium for coins that have been officially certified. Now here's something that might surprise you. Even though most 1952 pennies are not extremely rare, the demand for wheat pennies continues to grow. Collectors love these coins because of their historical value and classic design. And since they are no longer being produced, their supply is limited to what already exists. In fact, the wheat penny design was replaced in 1959 by the Lincoln Memorial design, making 1952 part of the final years of this iconic series. That alone makes it special. And with the U.S. penny no longer being produced in modern times, interest in older pennies is increasing even more. This means coins like the 1952 wheat penny could become even more collectible in the future. So what should you do if you find one? First, don't clean it. Cleaning a coin can actually reduce its value because it removes the original surface. Second, store it safely in a coin holder or protective case. And third, research or get it checked by a professional if it looks unusual or high quality. At the end of the day, the 1952 Lincoln Wheat Penny is more than just a coin. It's a piece of history, a collector's item, and possibly a hidden treasure waiting to be discovered. So next time you get change, don't ignore those small coins. Take a second look, because you never know. That 1-cent coin could be worth a lot more than you think. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss out on hidden treasures just like this one. And comment below if you've ever found a rare coin in your pocket. You might be holding something valuable right now without even knowing it.